Alrighty, so today we're going to be talking about our research project. I'm Trevor.
I'm Kathy.
Dimitri.
Abraham.
Adam.
Brady.
So our research question is, how has COVID-19 affected college students and their social well-being? Well, well-being can be explained in three webs: mental, physical, and social. The one that we're going to be hinting on is particularly social well-being, just because with social media increasing during isolation, we believe that social well-being has taken the biggest hit out of all three. So social well-being refers to our ability to make meaningful relationships and regular contact with people. Man by nature is a social animal. People crave connections, people crave love, people crave pretty much everything that the social ladder has to offer. Our relationship with our family impacts our life the most. So during COVID, maybe your relationship with your family was affected because people were scared. Maybe your mom didn't want you coming home during quarantine. Maybe your mom was older. So the family structure definitely was impacted a little bit by COVID. Social well-being, pretty much, it's wanting to feel connected and being around others. It's a natural impulse. People, one sec. Pretty much what COVID brought to people was that it went against human ways, so that affected our well-being.
Well, I'll take over from here. So I'm gonna cover the relationship of the importance of relationship and how COVID had impacted that. So relationship, we all look for relationship from different perspectives. Some of us will look for love, we look for protections, we look for guidance in that, and that is very important because we are all from different backgrounds, and COVID did not pick and choose on who we're gonna affect your love with, who we're gonna kill or whatever. So I think that's why we choose to discuss the importance of relationship and the impact of COVID. So with relationship, you also have the sense of belongings, and that's something that COVID take away from us because we could not be close with our family, which we get belongings from, because when you with your family, you're like, oh, I belong in this social group, or with your friends, you belong into that. And social connection is another thing that COVID take away from us. We could not go to the field as enemy student, we could not play our regular sport, we could not go to do dancing and stuff, and that's something that COVID impacted with our relationship on the social aspect. So some factor of social well-being from COVID, as we all know, this picture probably gave us trauma when we see it because of that. And we're gonna talk about the 5 names of people that we all name. So we'll talk about the self-actualization, which is desire to be like reach a higher potential, and that COVID impacted because you could not be like a full-time student where you actually get the full experience of being a college student and being your best self. And your self-esteem was another big thing that COVID impacted because you didn't have the freedom to move around, you didn't have the freedom to just do things you love to do, like meet friends, go out, drink beer. You have to basically do it by yourself. And then the love and belonging, and that's another big part of COVID impacted. And I've already talked about your bed, but the safety need, which is your health, your employment, COVID take that from us. We still struggling to get employment back and all that. And just your physiological needs like water, food. We all remember how people were going to Walmart fighting for toilet tissue, and that was just like ridiculous to see people going through that, and COVID impacted that. And those are stuff that how COVID impacted that we have to stay home and basically curfew like we're embracing basically, and the closure of a school, like the PIV, meeting in class in person, the fear of contacting the virus. You don't want to go out to the bar even if it's open. You're scared that maybe the next person has the virus. You don't want to go to it. And the unemployment, almost everybody lost their job because you couldn't do it. Scared that people, family member that you feel you are connected to, might like get the virus and die, unfortunately. And just that freedom that COVID take away from us was a very big impact on our social well-being.
So that leads us into isolation, and this was probably the biggest factor that affects your social well-being. So instead of creating those genuine connections like we all do in college, instead we're resorting to online connections, and really that void just can't be, the void from an online to a face-to-face connection just isn't there. So people resolve to drug use, alcohol, harmful content, violence. People were struck to poverty, and also isolation led to a very big increase in screen time.
All right, so diving into our research question, we're going to be looking at how has COVID-19 affected college students' social health and well-being. And looking a little bit more in depth into this question, we're going to be looking at time spent with family and friends, attendance at enemy events, and time spent on social media. Next, please.
So for our hypothesis one, we're going to talk about the decrease in time spent with family causes one to have worse social well-being. So during COVID, we saw many restrictions causing people not to be able to travel, go to work, school closed down. This kind of led to parents and grandparents necessarily didn't want students probably coming home necessarily maybe for the holidays or just because school closed. They didn't necessarily want to be protected. This led to students in their dorms more often, causing social isolation and depression, which then turned to communication with family to kind of dwindle, and in turn could have eventually maybe lost trust. So pass it to Dimitri for our second hypothesis.
Alright, so our second hypothesis is going to basically be how increases in social media usage is going to have an effect and decrease on one's social well-being. Basically, with this and having to stay home, with all the stay-at-home orders, we had an increase in social media usage. You can look at apps and websites. So like TikTok in 2020 had a increase of 85% with just new users. Even a giant like Facebook had an increase of 8.7%. Basically, finding new ways to communicate with other people. So this also led to game chats and things like that. So we also saw an increase of 20 minutes a day for like iMessage, WhatsApp, just overall just online messaging. And yeah, so we can go to hypothesis 3.
And for our final hypothesis, attendance of Northern Michigan University sponsored events improves one's social being. And to further broaden that aspect, COVID-19 has impacted students' attendance at NMU sponsored events, and looking at those sponsored events, group gatherings are more common at NMU sponsored events, so that's why we were kind of looking more in depth into that situation. Social distancing requirements have led to more negative effects on college students and social well-being.
So for our survey plan, so the objectivity of our study is to see if our 3 hypotheses or independent variables have a negative or a positive increase on social well-being. And so we'll be doing this by analyzing data from given to 300 college students. And so we'll do this by doing the Qualtrics survey like we all have sent out to the a mass of college students. But so in our survey, for the introduction of the survey, we have people can contact Dimitri, our group leader, if they have issues for it, or our professor, they can email him. So the survey is designed to have 13 questions. It asks our basic questions, but it also asks demographic questions like, race, age, and gender to see if there's any patterns. We also designed the survey to be only 5 to 10 minutes to complete. So this makes it easier, fast, and accessible. If it's easy, then students, are not having a hard time answering it, so they're able to give more honest feedbacks. We also designed it not to ask any personal questions, so it might make it so students might not want to answer. It is also designed so students cannot skip a question without answering, skipping the page without answering all the questions on the survey. And it's fast, as I said, it's only 5-10 minutes, so students don't have to be like, oh, I gotta get out of here, trying to skip through. So that's nice, and it's accessible because you can do it on your phones, tablets, computers. You can take it out any time of the day, so a student, doesn't have to be like, oh, it's gonna take me an hour, I'd save it out of my day. No, you wake up, you can take it if you want to, you've got 10 minutes, afternoon, dinner time, whatever time you want to. And we're hoping that analyzing all this data will, when it's all collected, will be able to tell us if our hypotheses are correct or if they're not.
Lastly, we'll be kind of looking at the sample plan. What our population is going to consist of Northern Michigan University students. Basically, with our sample frame, we're going to be looking at ages 18 on up. So basically, anyone that is involved with college courses, professors, things of that nature. Everyone has or deals with their social well-being. So we don't really want to include or disclude anybody from that. Our method that we'll be using will be a random online survey. We're going to just be sending out emails at random, hoping for responses and kind of going from there. Our sample size, we're going to be shooting for 300 students. Hoping that that's feasible. That is going to be your ideal amount of responses for a conventional research project. And then any questions?